Hey wrestling fans, it's Shawn from Scumbags Wrestling. Have you checked out our latest t-shirt design? It's inspired by our friends over at London Comic Con. Nigel Lewis of NCL Studios came up with this amazing design of a comic book cover. It features 22 stars of the Ontario independent wrestling scene, including Cody Deaner, Jody Threat, Casey Spinelli, Tyson Dukes, Brent Banks, Tarek, Sebastian Suave, Halal Beefcake, graduates of the Tyson Dukes Wrestle Factory, and many more. You can get your t-shirt for just $30 or buy the poster for $15. Proceeds from this sale are going to go to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto on behalf of Steven's Wrestling Journey. Steven is an 8-year-old fighting Chiari malformation, and they're searching for a cure. You can contact me either through our Facebook page, Scumbags Wrestling, or email me at scumbagswrestling@gmail.com. Get yourself a great t-shirt with an amazing design and help a wonderful cause at the same time. So contact me today and get your shirt or poster.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It is Wednesday, July the 8th. I do believe that date is correct. Yeah, but we are pre-recording this, so you will see it in its entirety premiere-wise on, like I said, Wednesday, July the 8th, 2020. This is the West Bracket, the last round of the Fantasy Warfare Tournament, the Greatest World Champions. Myself, Chris Maloney of TNT, as well as CWN Online. Shawn Bates of the Scumbags of Wrestling. Shawn, you're with us again. How's everything been?
Yeah, doing okay. Friday at 4:30 I started a vacation, which is in this day and time a staycation. So wife and I are trying to figure out what we're going to do. Hit a couple of friends' places, doing the social distancing or physical distancing, and yeah, just winging it for a week off, kind of away from work.
You guys should drive to Toronto, maybe go see Steven.
Yeah, Toronto has a lot of issues with getting coronavirus, so no, that's not one of the main places I want to go to yet.
Yeah, all right, so we'll bring him in. So yeah, we've got three of us tonight. So guys, Stephen O'Neill from Toronto with us as well. I'll tell you this, I already got outvoted, so I had another t-shirt on, and next thing I know, I put these guys, have them log in, and sure enough, hey, yeah, I voted already, so I had to go change shirts. So yeah, it is a Scumbags type field tonight. Like I said, it is the West bracket, the final show before we go live tomorrow night on YouTube as well as Facebook. So we're going to do TNT episode number 26. But while we're doing that, second part of the show is going to be devoted to the final four. Three names already been announced. So Chris Jericho, Ric Flair, and then Koff. Who was that last guy from last week?
Oh, hell yeah. Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, it might have been outvoted on that as well. Even though I wasn't necessarily part of the show, fact is, I still had my say. And Steven, I know you weren't the greatest as far as your picks went. You were going back and forth every which way. So I'm happy to be the deciding factor in this show. But Shawn, what I'm going
to... last week.
What's that?
A lot of heel turns last week.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was probably the best back and forth, banter show that we've had so far. But guys, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play the clip of who's up tonight. I'm going to say some probably the toughest matches I think we've had in this tournament so far. So 64 guys, 16 in the bracket tonight to round it out, but two of them I had a really hard time deciding on, and you'll probably be able to see this right now, but I'm going to play the clip, and we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about what's going to go on, break down the bracket, and away we go. So guys, here we go. So there you go, guys. There is the matchups for tonight. Two of them absolutely tough, and I'll get into those as we go. Some of them I thought were going to be tougher than others, but when I started breaking it down, I was like, no, this is pretty easy. So, but like I said, two are absolute tough for me personally as a wrestling fan. But Shawn, just for those that didn't see that video because they're listening possibly on audio, do you want to break down just the matchups for tonight?
Yeah, sure. As you said, it's our final 16 of the tournament. We're starting off with Brock Lesnar against Bruno Sammartino. Then Nick Aldis taking on Bret the Hitman Hart. The Rock taking on Okada. Yokozuna against the Ultimate Warrior. Alberto Del Rio versus Jay Lethal. Raven taking on the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Andre the Giant against the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. And the original Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers, taking on Naito.
Steven, how many of those were toughies for you?
First round, none.
Wow. I'd be interested. So for those, by the way, who've been listening to Steven bitch and moan about having any association with TNT, he does have a profile now up on our website, so Thursday-Night-Throwdown.ca. But the relevance to it is the fact is I saw who so I call them sharpshooters and sirens. Sharpshooters the guys, sirens the girls. But I saw who some of his favorite sharpshooters on, so I'm pretty sure I know where he's going with one of his picks for sure. But the rest we'll have to wait and see. But Shawn, you're up.
Yeah, you didn't ask me how my picks for the first round were, because this one here is one of my two tough ones that I'm not sure of. There's just a lot going on with Brock Lesnar taking on Bruno Sammartino. Brock Lesnar, 42 years old, debuted in 2000, left WWE in 2004. but he returned in 2012, and we've seen him do the part-time gig ever since. He was, at one point, the youngest champion in WWE history at age 25. He has 2 UFC championships, which don't apply to this part of what we're going through, but he's the guy who stepped away from wrestling and made it in another realm of mixed martial arts. He won the King of the Ring in 2002, one-time IWGP heavyweight champion, 5-time WWE champion, and 3-time Universal champion. So that's a lot of gold just within WWE and the one over in Japan to go with. Then you look at some of the things that he was voted for and his impact on the fans. So you look at PWI, and he had the Feud of the Year in 2003 against Kurt Angle, Feud of the Year in 2015 against The Undertaker, Match of the Year 2003 against Kurt Angle, and I believe that was WrestleMania.
SmackDown.
Pardon?
It's the Iron Man match on SmackDown.
Oh, okay.
15th.
So most hated in 2018, Wrestler of the Year in 2002 and 2014, and number 1 in the PWI 500 in 2003. So Brock Lesnar has a huge resume, taking on Bruno Sammartino. Like, where do we start? Debuted in 59, retired in 87, passed away, unfortunately, in 2018 at the age of 82. A lot of documentaries on how he got his start, immigrant, Italian family. Titles, he held the WWF World title 2 times. Now, that's a lot less than what Brock Lesnar has had, but when you look at the fact that his first title reign was 2,803 days, which is about 7.5 years, and his other title reign was 1,237 days, which is approximately 3 and a little bit of a year. Got his bronze statue in the WWE 2014 and Hall of Fame in 2013 after Triple H helped repair some bridges that were quite damaged between Bruno and Vince. Then over in PWI, Inspirational Wrestler of the Year 76, Match of the Year in 75, 76, 77, and 80, and 80 was against Larry Zbyszko, and Wrestler of the Year in 1975. So 2 different eras, 2 different dominant forces going on. I really, like I said, right from the start, I don't know who to pick. I was kind of hoping I could pass it off and let you guys pick and then me, but I know we can't do that. So given what impact they both have, scarily, I'm going to go with Brock Lesnar as my pick. I didn't really see Bruno's career because I started watching after he retired or just around the same time as he retired. But I've seen Brock Lesnar's career, and being chosen as one of the youngest champions ever, gotta go with him. Steven.
Well, Bruno Sammartino is obviously an amazing wrestler, but I never saw him wrestle, and that's part of the problem. Brock Lesnar's the youngest world champion, WWE world champion at 25 years, 44 days. He's won the IWGP heavyweight champion. He's Wrestling Observer Best Maneuver in 2002, Feud of the Year, Most Improved Wrestler 2 times. I mean, I don't really like Dave Meltzer that much, but it's got to be Brock Lesnar just because I've seen way more of his career. I mean, the whole thing. So I'm going Brock Lesnar.
So amazingly enough, we have our first 3-0 taking place. So I went Brock as well. Reason for it, you can't sit there and put down the legacy that Bruno Sammartino had. But when you think about it, what did he accomplish outside of the WWF? I'm with you guys. The fact is, you know what? When I first, found out who Bruno Sammartino was, it was basically because he was tag teaming with his, his son David Sammartino, which really didn't go anywhere. And then when you look back and you look at the Bruno feuds and everything else, and Ivan Koloff, Superstar Billy Graham, Pedro Morales, Bob Backlund, that kind of era. The fact is, he had won all of his championships even before Brock Lesnar was even born. Picking Brock, though, the fact is, he has gone from 2002 all the way to being relevant in 2020. Fact is, yes, he's taken breaks, but look at why he took those breaks. Fact is, he was NCAA heavyweight champion of the world. He has accomplished and conquered pretty much anything he has tried to do, with the exception of the NFL. But when he went over to Japan, he won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. He came back and won another WWE Championship, another Universal Championship. So the fact is, NCAA real champion. Now all of a sudden he gets into wrestling. He beats The Rock for the very first title. You guys got fucking smirks on your face. But fact is, when it comes down to it, Brock Lesnar, for what he's accomplished everywhere he's gone, he's a world champion material no matter where he goes. So fact is, he could go to AEW tomorrow and probably end up winning the championship by the end of July. It's who he is, and he's got that powerhouse of Paul Heyman behind him. They realized the guy couldn't speak that well, so they put Paul Heyman with him. Much the same way they put Bobby Heenan with guys. The fact is, Brock Lesnar is my pick. So unfortunately, Bruno Sammartino is out. First round. But Brock Lesnar moves on. So
he had a tough draw. There's some. If you look back at all 4 weeks so far, we'll find that a lot of guys got a shit draw to start with.
Yeah, so this will be interesting because I'm kind of curious to see where you guys are going to go. Steven, you start this one. Nick Aldis, the current reigning NWA World Heavyweight Champion, taking on basically the biggest legend probably Canada has ever produced in Bret the Hitman Hart.
So Nick Aldis, one-time Global Force Wrestling Global Heavyweight or Global Champion, ranked number 8 in the top 500 in 2014. PWI Most Improved Wrestler of the Year in 2013. Like Chris said, a 2-time NWA Heavyweight Champion, and he is the current NWA Champion. And he's a 1-time TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And then you have Bret Hart. Hold on, let me count. He's a ton of world champions. He's a 2-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion. He's a 5-time WWF World Heavyweight Champion. He's the 2nd Triple Crown winner in the WWF. He's got so many awards and accolades. He's 2-time King of the Ring champion. There's so many. It's Bret Hart. He's got to be one of the top, for me, top 2 or 3 wrestlers that I've ever watched. So for me, it's Bret Hart. Just too much of a legacy, too much of a career, and too good. Nick Aldis, in 10 years from now, might have a chance. I just don't think there's enough on his resume that he can beat Bret Hart.
So I tell you this, Shawn, your vote's not going to matter. I'll tell you why. Fact is, when you think about Bret Hart, you think about his beginnings. You think about the fact that he was Stu Hart's kid. He had that much to accomplish in wrestling, in life. They wanted to bring him in as Cowboy Bret Hart, and he was like, no, thanks, but no thanks. So all of a sudden, they put him with the Anvil the Hart Foundation's created. Then he breaks out, and all of a sudden, it's one of those kind of Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty type things. It was Bret, Anvil going their own separate ways. Who's going to be more of a star? He wins that Battle Royal at WrestleMania 4. He wins his first World Championship against Ric Flair in Saskatoon. Shawn Michaels wins his first championship. Who's he win it from? Bret Hart in an Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12. The legacy of the Hitman, the people he's been in the ring with, everybody that he has basically made look like a superstar. And the fact is, when he's been champion, he's carried himself like a champion. Not to say Nick Aldis hasn't done that, but the fact is Nick Aldis beat Tim Storm to basically recreate the NWA, and then beat Cody to try to put NWA back on the map. But the fact is, right now, yes, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, the ship itself is great and is relevant, but the fact is Nick Aldis carrying it against a guy like Bret Hart, forget about it. So yeah, Bret Hart 2-0. Shawn, going 3-0 or what?
It is 3-0. I think you thought I wasn't going to pick Bret, regardless of my not overly huge fandom of him. I did see him on 2 nights before the Montreal Screwjob, and he got his autograph and everything, held his knee brace after he had his interview or exit interview possibly with Carl DeMarco. And yeah, Bret Hart just has quite the resume, regardless if you're a fan of Bret's or not, right? Or just lukewarm to him. His career speaks for itself. Best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. And so, yeah, Bret's moving on 3-0 to take on Brock Lesnar.
That is going to be interesting. I thought first round was tough. That's going to be tough as well. Want to talk about tough. Easy segue into this. The toughest pick I think I've had in this tournament as a whole. So 64 guys, and this is the toughest because I am a huge fan of The Rock. All the way back to I think 1998 or 7, whenever the In Your House was in Hamilton. And then you have Okada. And Okada is one of those guys that New Japan treats him like the Stone Cold, the Hulk Hogan, the Rock, the Goldberg, so to speak. But I didn't know too much about him. And then when all of a sudden you start realizing Okada's history in wrestling, and you realize, how much he's changed New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, there's a really good booking over there, and he's got guys to go against like Naito and Tanahashi and guys like that. But the fact is, when it comes to Okada, when you go back and you look at him in TNA wrestling, he was a joke. He looked like basically a fool of himself. Then he goes over to New Japan. He discovers his gimmick, the Rainmaker, as they call it. He's put on great matches with with Chris Jericho. He's put on great matches with Kenny Omega. He has been 5-time IWGP Heavyweight Champion of the world. This is the guy they pretty much wrote off from wrestling. This is the guy who Impact Wrestling had their hands on. And basically, he stuck with New Japan Pro Wrestling. He stayed with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And the fact is, he is still relevant in 2020. And he's chasing for that goal once again to maybe face Naito on the 12th if he wins it on the 11th. Fact is, when it comes to The Rock, what he accomplished way back in the beginning was absolutely phenomenal. The crew of guys he had to work with is absolutely phenomenal. When he came back and won the title again versus John Cena after the 7-year absence, 8-year absence, whatever it was absolutely great. But The Rock took off in another direction. Everybody knows he's got a Hollywood career right now. You can compare the resumes, compare the championships, but when it really comes down to it, the fact is Okada is still relevant, and Okada has much carried himself like a champion the same way The Rock did. But the fact is, The Rock, even when he came back and won that title, it wasn't much of anything at all. Basically, CM Punk got screwed because of it. Rock went on to fight John Cena. Cena takes the title off of him, and the rest is history, so to speak. So for what Okada has gone through, and I'm not saying The Rock hasn't gone through stuff as well, but the fact is, for what Okada has gone through from basically, early, 2010, 11, 12 to who he is now, I had to go Okada. So it's sorry to see The Rock gone, possibly, but yeah, Okada moves on in my pick. So Shawn, Steven would be interested. Steven, I'm more curious about yours because I know you're a fan of New Japan, but Shawn, I think I know where you're going to vote, so I think Steven might be the tiebreaker in this.
Well, if you want to send it to Steven first to see how he is.
No, we're going to go in order.
Okay. Well, yeah, The Rock debuted in 96. I saw him January of 97 at the Skydome doing a press conference, and he was greener than grass still. He did a photo shoot outside of the dome, and that famous photo of him with his turtleneck and his fanny pack, that was actually done in the stairwell at the Skydome after he was outside taking photos and signing autographs. I got his last autograph on a drawing that I did before he went inside. And yeah, that famous picture actually was done in the hall, in the stairwell at Skydome. So people may not know that factor. He had match of the year against Mankind at the Royal Rumble. 2-time WCW champion, which is the WWE version. 8-time WWF champion. He's 6 for Triple Crown. Number 2 PWI 500 in 2000. And then, as you said, you have Naito, 5-time IWGP champion.
Okada.
Oh, Naito's later. Sorry, Okada. My apologies. 5-time IWGP champion. Tons of Nikan Sports Awards over in Japan. So MVP award in 2012, 13, 15, and 17. Match of the year in 12, 14, 17, and 18. 2 of them being with with Omega. All over the place. Sorry, guys. So number 1, PWI 500 in 2017. I gotta go with Okada. Just to surprise you there, Chris. But you compare it, and some of The Rock's wins were just for the shock factor of setting up, as you said. He took the belt off CM Punk for no apparent reason, just so that there was a title on the line between him and Cena. That match could have happened without a title involved and not screwing over CM Punk. We gotta go with Okada. Steven?
Well, that emotionally surprised me. I mean, don't get me wrong, The Rock is The Rock, and I'll always respect for what he did, but he left, and when he came back, there was no need to put a title on him. He didn't need it. He doesn't need to be. But Okada, he's right up to last year in 2019, he's had the Best Bout Award against Sonata, another TNA reject that they screwed that up. Imagine the talent they would have. He's won Feud of the Year in 2012, 2013, 2017, Most Improved in 2012, Most Outstanding in 2017, Best Pro Wrestling Match of the Year 2013, 2016, 2017, 2018, Wrestler of the Year in 2017, Japan MVP in 2019, Most Outstanding Wrestler of the Decade in 2010, Best Match of the Decade in 2010s. He's won CBS Match of the Year in 2018 against Kenny Omega. It's too much, and Okada's still not finished. I can't wait to see what else he can do, and I'm going to make this bold prediction now. He becomes a 6-time IWGP Heavyweight Champion on the 12th.
And he's only 32 years old.
Yeah, so he's probably got another 8 to 10 years, which is insane. So I think this will shock everyone, but Okada, 3-0, just beat The Rock.
That's interesting. Based on the 3-0 aspect, I thought you were going to go Okada, but Shawn surprised me because Shawn is a huge North American wrestling fan. It is interesting.
Comparing resumes.
Yeah, I mean, Okada, like I said, is tough to beat. And when you think about this, when you think about Okada only being 32 years old, it's like you guys were talking about Adam Cole and how young he is. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see where Okada, 10 years from now, what kind of impact he's, maintained as far as wrestling goes. Shawn, we are back to you. This will be interesting. Yokozuna, the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah. This was kind of the one. Like, as I said, the other one that I had difficulty was picking between Rock and Okada. The rest, I think I'm good with. But with Yokozuna against Warrior, we're talking about guys who had relatively short WWE world title reigns. Yokozuna debuted in 1984, wrestled in AWA as Coquinus Maximus, but he didn't come to WWE until the early 90s. He died in 2000 at the age of 34, which is really surprising because some of those guys you thought were older than what they were. He was a most improved wrestler in 93, number 5 in the PWI 500 in 93, 2-time WWF World Champion, and you look at who he beat for it. He beat Bret Hart, and then he beat Hulk Hogan, and then he got in the Hall of Fame in 2012. You go over to Warrior. He debuted in 85, retired in 98, died in 2014, the day after, 2 days after he made it into the Hall of Fame. And he was 54 years old. And just the last moments you see of him on Monday Night Raw, almost predicting his death, is kind of eerie in that sense. Accomplishments, he got PWI 90, Comeback of the Year 92, Feud of the Year 91 against Taker, Match of the Year against Hogan in 90 at WrestleMania, and number 9 in PWI 500 in 92. As for titles, he won a couple titles. World Class Wrestling Association one time, New Wrestling Evolution one time, WWF one time, Hall of Fame in 2014, and got his bronze statue in 2015. But you look at the two reigns that both of them had. Yokozuna, I think, had a little bit more of an impact, even though he was against Lex Luger and the whole Lex Express thing went on. But he carried it from King of the Ring to WrestleMania, where he lost it to Bret Hart at WrestleMania 10. And Ultimate Warrior, he was supposed to be handed the torch from Hulk Hogan and be the next guy. Hogan was taking off doing movies, and by the time he came back, basically everybody had soured on him, and that's why he ended up dropping the title to Slaughter at Royal Rumble. And so he really wasn't a big impact on the possession of the title. So I am going to go with Yokozuna. Steven.
Well, let's just say one of these I am not a fan of because I never got him as a kid, and one I hated as a kid. The one I hated will be moving on. I never got the Ultimate Warrior. Didn't get it. Did think he was – I was a Hulkamaniac. Didn't really get the draw of the Ultimate Warrior. And he's only got one world championship. It literally came down to Yokozuna has two. A little better competition. So I'm going to go Yokozuna. So Warrior's gone, which is probably for the best.
Yeah, well, whoever won would have got Okada next round anyway. So, fact is, it's not a 3-0, it's a 2-1. I'm a huge fan of the Ultimate Warrior, but outside of that, fact is, when I was comparing both of their reigns, and like you said, Yoko had 2 championships, Warrior had 1. That one championship the Warrior won was absolutely amazing. I still look back at it and get goosebumps anytime I see it on the network or see it on YouTube, whatever the case may be. When you look at Yoko's reigns, the fact is it was the whole big, hey, let's screw over Bret Hart. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, when he won it from Hogan, wasn't there like a fireball or fire flash or something like that involved? Like, it wasn't a clean victory over Hogan, was it?
No, it was the supposed cameraman.
Yeah. So don't get me wrong, Yoko could have been one of the greatest champions in the world just for the fact that, and when you see what's gone on with The Undertaker lately with all of a sudden his documentaries and stuff, and you talk about the respect the Undertaker had for Yoko, and one of the things he had said, he's never seen somebody like that be able to move that fast for a big man, and you start watching clips of Yokozuna, it's like, holy crap, how did he do some of the stuff he did, you know what I mean? Fact is, when it comes down to it, Warrior's title reign, the way he won the championship was a lot more relevant to me than Yoko's were, especially when Shawn's talking about the Lex Express, everything else, and the whole big body slam thing, and Lex Luger goes from the narcissist into Mr. America, so to speak. But fact is, Warrior's out, but 2-1 vote. So Yoko moves on to take on Kazuchika Okada next round, which is going to be very interesting. Steven, you're up next. Jay Lethal versus Alberto Del Rio. Should be interesting here to see where people go, because I was surprised with my pick on this one.
Well, there's a piece of shit called Alberto Del Rio, and then there's Jay Lethal. So, 2-time ROH World Heavyweight Champion, ROH Pure Champion. He's like the current half of the ROH Tag Team Champions, 2-time World Television Champion, which if you follow ROH, that's a big deal because you're on television a lot, almost every week. PWI ranked him number 5 on the top 500 singles wrestlers in 2016. This is another TNA guy that they screwed up. Notice a pattern there. He's so many across, and Alberto Del Rio has been accused of way too many things, so I can't even look at his resume. So I'm going Jay Lethal.
So Shawn, you will be the tiebreaker. I had to go Alberto Del Rio, not based on the fact who he is outside of the ring, because he is a complete piece of shit, but inside of the ring for what he's accomplished, for the way he carried himself, the championships that he has won. You're talking Mexico, you're talking 2 different promotions in North America. He did win the WCW, I think, World Heavyweight Championship, or just the World Heavyweight Championship, as well as the WWE title. Some of the big names that he's fought against in some of these matches, including, Edge, was absolutely amazing. He was feuding with CM Punk at one point. Fact is, for the accomplishments that were in the ring, Jay Lethal, I love him to death. He's one of the most charismatic, as well as one of the most underrated guys in the business. But the fact is, he never won the big one in Impact Wrestling, and took him forever almost to win the big one in ROH. So I realize the talent base isn't the greatest in ROH. When, say, for example, American Dragon were back there and CM Punk and guys like that. But for who carried themselves better as a champion and in the big time performance matches, I got to go Alberto Del Rio. Like I said, as much a piece of shit he is outside of the ring, championship wise, yes, I had to go with him this one. So Shawn, you are the tiebreaker.
Yeah, unfortunately, I am going to go with Del Rio just because of the competition he had while holding the titles. Don't like the guy. All the things that you read about him, you're just like, hopefully the movement that we're seeing around the wrestling world with the speaking out definitely includes getting rid of a guy like him. We've already seen other guys be somewhat eliminated from the scene because of it, and he would be one of the top guys I would say needs to definitely be eradicated. But we are comparing resumes. So sadly, Alberto Del Rio moves on, but he's probably not going to go much further.
Yeah, that's almost a guarantee. All right, next match I get Raven taking on the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Hands down, it's pretty much, with the exception of the Dream being an absolutely amazing guy outside the ring. But the fact is, when you think of Raven, never won the big one outside of ECW. When he was in Impact Wrestling, never won the big one there. Never, I don't even know if he might have been in a title match against DDP in WCW. But the fact is, when I was reading his stats today, he was a hardcore champion in the WB 27 times. He was basically the R-Truth back then. You know what I mean? But IC champ. What's that?
Sorry, you're wrong. He did win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship in TNA.
So I didn't. So okay. So there's two. Still doesn't matter.
I'm correcting you. Sorry.
No. It's going to be corrected. But the fact is, it's Dusty Rhodes. I mean, there's a certain amount of names out there, and even though Dusty only officially ever had one NWA World Heavyweight Championship title reign, it's the guys that he were part of. It's the Nature Boy era. To me, when I was buying the magazines as a kid, if you saw Ric Flair on the magazine, pretty damn sure Dusty Rhodes was either fighting him or on that magazine cover as well. When you think back to the days of Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant for the WWF, to me, or Savage even, to me, WCW, NWA back then was Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair. And then you had all the connections with the Road Warriors and Nikita Koloff and, everything that it valued, enshrined, so to speak, NWA. But Dusty only had that one title reign, and Shawn had that picture in the intro of Dusty wearing that belt. They must have custom sized it. He's a very big man, but the fact is, when it comes down to it, Raven's accomplishments, even though corrected NWA World Heavyweight Champion, but that was in the Impact roster, right? That was back in the early days of TNA Wrestling when NWA Championship was the title back then. So fortunately, Raven can't go with you this time. I loved his stuff in ECW, but the fact is he's, again, luck of the draw, American Dream, Dusty Rhodes is moving on for me. Shawn, you're up.
Well, Raven did win 7 other promotions championships, along with the 2 ECW titles and the TNA NWA title. As you said, 27-time hardcore champion and number 22 in PWA 500 in 2003. So Scott Levy is a good wrestler. Like, we saw the different incarnations of him, maybe not that great as Johnny Polo, but he definitely found himself when he embraced the Raven character. Then you got, as you said, Dusty, the creative genius, and unfortunately that is what I think is fueling too much of Cody right now, of wanting to live up to his dad's legend and reclaim things that were not necessarily Dusty Rhodes, but were WCW's property that WWE owns, and so he feels like he's avenging Dad. Dusty did have a bunch of other titles, and he was in from the territory realm. So those world titles don't necessarily look the same. Excuse me. He held the Championship Wrestling from Florida NWA title 12 times. He had the NWA Central States title 1 time. Southern title from Championship Wrestling from Florida 10 times. NWA World title 1 time, and that was based in Florida. Then you go Georgia Championship Wrestling, Georgia 1 time, National 1 time, World 1 time, and for the Mid-Atlantic JCP WCW era, he held it once. So those are somewhat the same title in a way, with the way things were structured in the territory days. So that's a lot of titles compared to the thought of just one. If you're only looking at the JCP WCW version, but then feud of the year with Superpowers taking on the Horsemen, match of the year against Harley Race, Ric Flair, most popular in 78, 79, 87, wrestler of the year in 78 and 77. I gotta go Dusty.
Well, if Raven had a different draw, maybe he would have a chance, but he drew Dusty Rhodes. And yeah, he won the NWA title, but like the Florida, like Shawn said, they're all kind of lineage to the NWA World Championship. So he's a multi-time NWA heavyweight champion. I'm going to go with Dusty Rhodes. Not a big surprise, I think, here. I think we all kind of picked him when he got this draw. I have a feeling Del Rio's done after this, but that's just me.
All right, so Dusty Rhodes, Alberto Del Rio next round. Shawn, you're up next. What a draw this is. Now, the format was 64 of the greatest world champions ever. We each had 16 picks, so myself, Stephen, Shawn, Jonesy. You know what? As long as they were world champion, you can get in there. So fact is, we had Great Khali in there. And now all of a sudden, we've got one of the greatest champions WWE's ever seen in the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, taking on the one and only Andre the Giant. Shawn, you're up.
Yeah, well, how Andre snuck in there is interesting, considering, February 4th, 1988, the crooked referee, the one that got plastic surgery, Hogan, they were twins. Twins, not plastic surgery. No money was exchanged for surgery, but that was a huge main event on a Friday night, primetime, NBC. Andre the Giant gets a rematch with Hogan from WrestleMania 3, takes the title in a very bad underhook toss, and Hogan gets his arm up after 1 count. But Andre gets the title, presents it to Mr. DiBiase, and basically his title reign is done. He never got anything else for world titles. You look at his list of accomplishments, a lot of it is all winning battle royals, because wherever he worked on those type of shows, he was used as an attraction. He debuted in 1966, retired in 92. We unfortunately saw him on the crutches accompanying the Bushwhackers at SummerSlam, I believe it was, against the Natural Disasters. It was kind of sad to see Andre the way he was. And then in 93, January 27th, he passed away at the age of 46. He was the very first ever inductee, and by himself, into the WWE Hall of Fame. And that's where it was created after Andre's death. Some people think it was due to Vince's guilt over how things ended between him and Andre. But beyond that, he had his bronze statue in 2013. I think he was one of the first bronze statues done to honor, and it's in the lobby at headquarters with everybody else's that now are following suit. Most popular PWI in 77 and 82. Match of the year against Killer Khan in 81. Match of the year 88 against Hogan at that main event that I just brought up. Most hated in 88 because of that. And number 3 in PWI 500 when they did the PWI years in 2003. So it was a special list on that one. And we're talking now his other side of the bracket, Shawn Michaels. Debuted in 84, retired in 2010. He only has had one match, if you want to call it that, a stinker, in Saudi Arabia in 2018. He got into the Hall of Fame in 2011 as himself, 2019 as part of DX, 3 WWF championships, and upon returning in 2002, he did pick up the big gold or the world title in the very first ever Elimination Chamber. He was the very first guy to do the Hell in a Cell with Undertaker. His first Grand Slam champion, fourth Triple Crown winner. Part of that included 3 IC titles. Then you look at everything that he got voted for with the fans and PWI. Feud of the Decade against Jericho between 2000 and 2009. Feud of the Year in 2008 with Jericho. Match of the Decade against Flair at WrestleMania. Inspirational Wrestler of the Decade between 2000 and 2009. Most popular in 95 and 96. Number 1 PWI 500 in 96. Number 10 PWI 500, the PWI years 2003. And here's the big long list right over here of matches of the year. 93 against Jannetty. 94 against Razor Ramon at WrestleMania. 95 against Diesel at WrestleMania. 96 against Brett at WrestleMania. 04 against Benoit and Hunter at WrestleMania.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off for a second. 93 against Jannetty?
Yeah, Monday Night Raw.
Monday Night Raw. Jannetty and Michaels for the IC title. 04 against Benoit and Hunter at WrestleMania 20. 05 against Angle at 21. 06 against Vince at 22. Yes, Vince was in a match of the year. 07 against Cena. That was a Iron Man match on Raw after their WrestleMania match. 08 against Flair at WrestleMania 24. 09 and 10 against Taker at 25 and 26. Like, the guy, even in losing a lot of those matches, it were matches of the year. Compared to Andre and a lot of these people that are going to be in the next round, Shawn Michaels has a huge resume to compare to. And Shawn is moving on to the second round for sure.
So you say you're only one vote. Why haven't we both go Andre the Giant?
Then you guys are crazy and been drinking some Paul Heyman Kool-Aid.
No, I got the bubbly tonight, or the buble, is whatever you want to call it. Steven, you're up.
Well, is there anything else really to say about those two? I'm going to go HBK because you can't compete against that roster. There's nothing else to say.
All right, so in saying that it is 3-0, I went HBK as well. There's really no comparison. But Shawn was sharing stories about The Rock earlier. I'll share 2 things. Number 1, I am a wrestling fan, pro wrestling fan, because of Andre the Giant. When I was a kid, I could not get enough of this guy. Anytime he was on TV, Coliseum home videos for those people that know what a VHS is. I couldn't get enough of watching the guy. Watching his cage match against Big John Studd, against Kamala. It was just absolutely phenomenal. And short story is this. So one of the cool things is I grew up in the Maritimes. My great uncle was a Maritime wrestling referee. The last match he ever refereed, he got tossed over the top rope by Andre the Giant, dislocated his shoulder. Never refereed a match again. That wasn't Andre the Giant back then, though. It was Andre Roussimoff, or there was a French term that they used to call him as well. For Andre when he was down the Maritimes before he hit the big leagues. But the fact is, Andre the Giant, a lot of ties as far as me personally goes to why I'm a wrestling fan, and family ties as well. But put him against Shawn Michaels. You can put him against Great Khali, and it'd be interesting. But the fact is, Shawn's right. Battle royals, gimmicks, for who he was, this and that. failed to get the surgery that probably would have saved his life and extended his life a couple, maybe another 5-10 years. But the fact is, he elected not to get it. Big Show, I think, had that surgery. And that's why Big Show is still kicking to this day. But the fact is, Andre the Giant, as great as he wasn't world champion. He didn't need that world championship. But that memory, February 4th, 1988, will always go down. And the downside about that was, as a wrestling fan, you couldn't go on the internet to find out what the hell was happening. There was no scoops. There was no spoilers, so to speak. You couldn't be like, holy shit, I just, wrestling just signed off on this Friday night. What's going to happen next? You had to wait until Superstars the next day to find out if they're going to release any information. If that wasn't the case, you'd have to wait until the following week on Superstars. Or, in the 90s, they had the 1-900 numbers. But the fact is, back in the day, 88, that was it. You had to wait. So one of the greatest moments in wrestling history as far as I'm concerned, WWF-wise. But, HBK moves on. And Steven, last match of the first round. Interesting, because I love Tetsuya Naito, but the fact is, I don't think he's going to advance because he went against the original Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers. So you're up.
So Buddy Rogers, a one-time AWA World Heavyweight Champion in Chicago, 3-time AWA World Heavyweight Champion in Ohio, AWA Eastern State Heavyweight Champion one time, Montreal version, 3-time Heavyweight Champ, one-time NWA World Heavyweight Champ, inducted into the NWA Hall of Fame in 2010. He's an NWA Mid-America Heavyweight Champion one time. Pro Wrestling Illustrated won an award. And he's a WWF World Heavyweight Champion one time, and he was the first World Heavyweight Champion. Inducted into the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame in 96. And then there's Naito. He's the current IWGP Heavyweight Champ 2 times, 5-time and current Intercontinental Champion. He's got Match of the Year in 2016 versus Kenny Omega. PWI ranked him number 9 in the top 500 in 2018. I'm going Naito. I've watched him. Don't get me wrong, Buddy Rogers, but I've got to go Naito. I've seen him. I've got to go Naito.
Shawn, you're going to be the tiebreaker because I went Buddy Rogers. I love Naito. I love the fact that he is it when it comes to New Japan Pro Wrestling right now. I love the fact that New Japan Pro Wrestling is back, and I am like a little kid getting stoked for the 11th and the 12th. But the fact is, when you look at Naito's resume against friggin' Buddy Rogers, I mean, guy is in multiple halls of fame. NWA World Heavyweight Champion, WWF World Heavyweight Champion, AWA World Heavyweight Champion. The guy, and just a note on this, so you want to talk about career, okay, and it's a little bit different back then, but the fact is, when it comes down to Buddy Rogers, the guy debuted in 1939, didn't officially retire until 1982. You think about his name, Nature Boy. And there's a lot of Nature Boys that came after him, but the 2 most prominent ones were Nature Boy Buddy Landel and Nature Boy Ric Flair. And the fact is, I mean, they loved the guy that much that Nature Boy Ric Flair wanted to do something to basically honor this guy. You know what I mean? And the fact is, when you hear about wrestling history and wrestling lineage, fact is, when it comes down to it, Buddy Rogers is pretty much it. I mean, when you go back in time and you think about some of the big names, he is basically, I think, to me anyways, number 1 as far as wrestling lineage goes. And without him, wrestling wouldn't be the way it is today. And in a good sense, not in a bad sense. So, Shawn, you are tie-breaking Naito versus Buddy Rogers.
Yeah, I am going to echo your sentiments of everything that Buddy Rogers done. And he's the original Nature Boy. Naito has a lot left to go for his resume to be complete. There's so much more potential to be seen with him, and we know what the career of Buddy Rogers was. I'm going as of right now because of what we can compare to. Definitely Buddy Rogers is moving on to face the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, in the next round. So Buddy Rogers It advances 2-1.
So Buddy Rogers for the win there, Steven. Reason for it, just the resume alone itself. But next round, and guys, I'm going to bring this up. Any surprises you think for what we've got? I mean, obviously the Andre the Giant one might have been a surprise there, but I'm just going to bring up the second round here. But like I said, any surprises
How was
from you
Andre a
guys?
surprise elimination?
Oh, come on. I was joking around.
I'm surprised The Rock went 3-0. I thought that'd be a 2-1. No, no one else really surprised me. Moving on. I mean, I figured Buddy Rogers, but
Threw Naito a bone?
well, that and I've seen so much of Naito's career, so I appreciate Naito. So it's one of those things that I just have to.
So, guys, second round coming up. I think some of these matches are even tougher than the first ones. At least this one anyway. Brock Lesnar taking on Bret the Hitman Hart. We've got Kazuchika Okada taking on Yokozuna. The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes taking on Alberto Del Rio. And then Shawn Michaels taking on Buddy Rogers. I'm going to say personally this. I'm going to say basically I think it's 2 and 2. I think 2 are toughies and 2 are pretty easy ones. But that's just my viewpoint there. The guys agree? I disagree?
I agree.
I think I can pick these ones easy.
All right, that's interesting. So, Steven, you went first last time, so I guess first round is me, and this is just going to minimize the screen here so I can actually see the votes again. But Brock Lesnar, Bret the Hitman Hart. It's funny because I'm doing this and I'm making sure that all the graphics are up and making sure the votes are in properly. So, but damn, and now I get first pick again. This sucks. Brock Lesnar, Bret the Hitman Hart. So we've already talked about the resumes and everything that comes with it. And as much as I hate to say this, because I am Canadian and I love the guy, but I've got to go Brock Lesnar. Simply because of the resume, because of the fact that when you think Bret Hart, he was Stampede Wrestling, he was WCW, he was WWF, then he went WWE, when all of a sudden the water under the bridge thing happened. But the fact is, outside of that, when he went to WCW, as much as he was world champion over there, he got screwed over. Brock Lesnar has gone and dominated every place he has been. And the fact is, like I said, with the exception of the NFL, he, MMA-wise, amateur wrestling, pro wrestling, and he's done it for 18 years now, off and on. Bret, I think, probably would have continued his career if not that thing happened with Goldberg, and maybe he would have mended the fence with, Vince earlier, and maybe we would have got to see him versus Shawn Michaels one more time, but there was way too much going on. There was the concussion and the motorcycle accident and Owen's death and the way that Survivor Series 1997 went down. So I feel we never really got to see the best of Bret Hart. When Brock walked away, WrestleMania 20, that match with Goldberg, and nobody ever thought he'd come back. He came back, and for what he's done since he's been back, it's been absolutely amazing. But it sucked at the same time. But the fact is, when you look at his resume against Bret's, I've got to go Brock. So 1-0 Brock. Shawn, you're up.
Well, I think Bret's failure, if as you put it, in WCW was more due to the inmates running the asylum and the fact that, as Vince said in Wrestling with Shadows, WCW would not know what to do with a Bret Hart. Brock Lesnar, as a part-time champion, part-time employee for that matter, is coming in and just basically holding the belt that lately has not had any significance to it. When you're quickly just switching it to make a match look good compared to what is logical, or you can have the match without the title being involved, and the fact that he just comes and goes and they put the belt on him doesn't impress me as much. And Bret Hart had the company put on his shoulders after Hogan left, and they needed somebody to be the poster child for the non-steroid, non-bulked up era, and Bret was able to do that. As much as he complained or was not happy with his bookings in '96 because I just listened to actually Jim Ross, Grill and JR doing Bret Hart's '96. He felt he was more of a transitional champion between Diesel and Shawn, but WWE knew to put the belt on Bret to get ready for Shawn, and Shawn could look good against a Bret Hart. So I'm picking Bret to go, and Steven is tiebreaker.
Well, one of these is my all-time one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, and one is a part-timer. So I'm not picking the part-timer because as much as I've enjoyed what he did being the youngest WWE champion, he never, I think, took the world title to the next level where Bret Hart always made the title important. He could wrestle Yokozuna and have a great match. He could wrestle Diesel. He could have an athletic match with Shawn Michaels. So it's Bret Hart. He's got to be one of the greatest world champions out there. So
2-1 Bret Hart advances, and I feel bad for next round. Rest in peace Yokozuna, but Yoko taking on Okada. Shawn, you're up.
2 WWF championships that lasted only a year, with the exception of a couple months between that Hogan held it, because Yokozuna's first championship reign was 128 seconds or something like that before Hogan took it off him. But then Hogan didn't defend, and Yoko had it from June until WrestleMania 10, and then 5-time IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Yeah, Okada is moving on against Yokozuna in the battle of Japanese wrestlers.
So I've already closed the Yokozuna window, and I've already written who was going to win this at the end of the last one. It's going to be Okada. He's a 5-time IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, and he's probably going to be a 6-time July 12th. Yokozuna is probably one of the best big men around. For what he could do at his size was inhumane. And that bonsai drop, as a kid, I actually thought he was killing the person coming off the second rope, because actually sometimes I think he just decided he wasn't going to catch himself and just squash some of those people.
Well, the one guy was Virgil at Survivor Series.
Yeah.
No loss.
So I'm going Okada, and I'm going to guess Chris is going to go Okada too. But let's see if he just throws a curveball in there.
No, it's 3-0 Okada. But funny story is that, again, with the Taker special, Taker was like, the way Yokozuna used to hit that bonsai drop, he had 2 ways of doing it. Number one, he could plant his feet, and you basically wouldn't feel his weight. But there are those rare occasions, if you were pissing him off or all of a sudden he did not like you, he would kick his feet out, and they'd have that whole 600 pounds on top of you sitting there in the corner. And I think Virgil was one of those guys that he put his feet out. So if you ever watch a Yokozuna match and watch him hit that bonsai drop, if he liked you, yeah, his feet were planted first. If he didn't like you, his feet were out. And that's, 600 pounds coming down on top of you. But again, yeah, Okada moves on. It's a resume. We're getting down to, Dusty Rhodes is as great as he is, but you're thinking about, you got Shawn Michaels, Bret the Hitman Hart, Okada, possibly Dusty Rhodes, coming up. But basically, and that's if Dusty can get by Alberto Del Rio and Shawn Michaels get by, Buddy Rogers. But fact is,
it's going to move on. Wow.
I'm getting excited about what the finals could possibly be, because the way this tournament's going, I never would have thought Shawn would have voted Okada in the beginning. So, see, I'm trying to sway the vote right now. I'm trying to do the Don West thing, but. Anyways, I'll put it this way. So, Bret Hart, Kazuchika Okada next round. Steven, you are up next. You have got Alberto Del Rio and Dusty Rhodes.
It's fucking Dusty Rhodes versus Alberto Del Rio. This should be a 3-0, or I'm coming to London to slap both of you. Dusty Rhodes is Dusty Rhodes. He's one of the greatest of all times, one of the greatest world champions. He's held world titles everywhere he's gone in the territory days, like Shawn said last round. It's Dusty Rhodes. Easy, hands down. No questions.
Yeah, I get it. So Shawn, vote really doesn't matter in this one. I had to go Dusty Rhodes as well. The thing that one of you guys brought up is the fact is when you were looking back in the 70s, so to speak, in the territory days, even though you don't see NWA World Heavyweight Champion, you might see NWA World Heavyweight Champion Georgia or NWA World Heavyweight Champion Florida. The fact is that it still mattered because back then the only thing that mattered was the territory days. When you look, and I was looking at the WWE Championship history today, when you look at some of the lineage, the fact is it's WWF is now part of the NWA, and there's like a little asterisk beside it. So NWA was the umbrella, and then you had all these different territory promotions underneath it. Stampede Wrestling being one of them as well. But the amount of accomplishments that Dusty Rhodes had, match of the year, most popular, and like I said, the amount of magazines he was on when I was a kid was absolutely phenomenal. And then he almost went Undertaker status. He really didn't need the title. Even when he was the American Dream, the polka dot guy in WWF, the fact is he was still relevant. People still knew who the hell he was. So Dusty Alberto Del Rio, the fact is, I talked about both these guys earlier, but the fact is it's Dusty Rhodes. So Dusty's moving on. Shawn, who are we going to go with?
Oh, that's right, baby. It's the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. He's moving on 3-0.
All right, so you get the top two toughest matches second round, and I get first pick in both of these. This sucks. But I tell you this, is the relevance, the matches of the years, the WrestleMania moments, and I've given it away right there, but the fact is you can compare championships, you can compare careers. If Shawn Michaels hadn't gotten injured, if Shawn Michaels didn't have as much attitude as he actually had, holy crap, the resume he would have had continuously beyond the one he already has is absolutely amazing. You think about the Shawn Michaels who he was in the mid-90s when he took the title off of Brett, to all of a sudden the matches he was presenting against The Undertaker when he went out, and to guys that he was fighting as well, like the whole the DX skits and everything else. And when everybody knew DX, the first time with Ravishing Rick Rude in China, and all of a sudden the next thing Triple H takes over, and then all of a sudden he gets through Triple H again, and the matches he presented then. He is Mr. WrestleMania for a reason, and the fact is the amount of championships. So Buddy Rogers, because of the era he was in, put him up against somebody like Shawn Michaels. Forget about it. Shawn's going on in my vote.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels getting my vote as well. But you were talking about, the matches of the year. That landing on the casket was probably the best and worst thing to happen to Shawn Michaels. Before that, he had matches of the year, like the 4 years in a row, 93 to 96. But you compare what they were and stuff like that. His attitude and just his drug use, he wouldn't have had those other 7 years of matches of the years from 04 to 10 had he not gotten destroyed by that casket and needed to take time off, heal up, found religion, found a wife, just straightened his life up around. And the Shawn Michaels that came back in 2002 was better than the Shawn Michaels that started in 1984. And yeah, no question at all, Shawn advancing to the semifinals.
This one's 3-0. He is Mr. WrestleMania. I remember the Iron Man match and sitting on the edge of my seat. The ladder match at WrestleMania. I think Chris said, I would have loved to see Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels in around 2004 when they both probably got some of their egos in check. Imagine the potential, but it's HBK.
Yeah, when you think about Shawn Michaels, you think about the drug use and the arrogance and the ego and everything else. That's not to say Bret Hart didn't have ego as well. There was a lot of shit that went down that possibly wouldn't have had to go down. But the fact is, when you look at even some of Bret's interviews back then, he thought he was jack shit, and he had reason to think it. At the same time, Shawn Michaels did as well. They both parallel careers, tag team wrestlers that broke off, that basically skyrocketed. And I'll never forget '96 and watching the Anaheim main event at WrestleMania and Shawn Michaels Bret Hart and the Iron Man match, and all of a sudden watching the whole thing in its entirety, and then going into OT the way it did, and then but the way that they had fought even before that, Bret and Shawn. So it'd be interesting because we could have a finals of Bret and Shawn, which is going to be very interesting to see. But first, we got to get through the semifinals here. So Bret the Hitman Hart taking on Kazuchika Okada, as well as the American Dream Dusty Rhodes taking on the one and only Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. So
this could be the final four if brackets were different. If they were each in their own different bracket, they could have each won their own bracket. This is, I think, probably the best final four we've had out of the all the brackets.
It's been interesting because some of the brackets that we've had, like the North, South, East, and West, you've had John Cena and Randy Orton fight first round. You know what I mean? You've had Randy the Macho Man Savage in the same group as Hulk Hogan. It's been interesting as far as a lot of the brackets go, and you can watch each one of these Fantasy Warfare tournaments to see how we've made our predictions and picks and everything else. And the fact is, like Steven was just saying, though, Final Four, these guys could easily be in the Final Four together. So we're getting close. We got 4 left here. 3 names already announced. So Ric Flair, Chris Jericho, Stone Cold Steve Austin. One of these guys is going to join them. So Steven, you were last pick last time. Shawn, you are first pick this time. So toughest match possibly of the tournaments, this bracket anyway, the West bracket. So Kazuchika Okada taking on the one and only Bret the Hitman Hart.
Well, I think the same thing as I said back in the first round with Rogers and Naito. Naito has a lot of potential still left in him. So does Okada. He's only 32 years old, 5 title reigns so far. There's a lot to go. We've seen Bret Hart's career from almost start to finish, depending on when you started watching. But a lot of his time in WWE, I think I missed maybe a year or two, and then the rest of it fully seen. 7 world titles, a couple of U.S. titles, Intercontinental titles, Tag Team titles, King of the Rings. You got to go with Bret Hart over Okada.
Interesting. Steven?
Unfortunately, there's just too much there. Like I said, I love Okada. I think he's going to win the IWGP Heavyweight and Intercontinental Champion July 12th. But it's not at the Bret Hart level yet. Maybe in 5-10 years, he'd pass Bret Hart if the career stays on the path it is. But I'm going Bret Hart. There's too much there. History, he's got too many world championships. I'm going Bret Hart.
So, talking about hearts, my heart just kind of broke because I was going Okada. So it's not a 3-0, but it is a 2-1.
Which is surprising considering how much love you exude all the time for Bret. That I'm surprised that this wasn't like your Omega for this round.
Who, Bret?
Bret.
Oh, well, hey, I tell you this. So the last project I attempted to do was called the Sharpshooter. That was obviously after Bret the Hitman Hart. Created the star logo to match the logo on Bret Hart's boots. It just never caught wind, so it wasn't going where I wanted to. So I switched back to CWN, which I created in 2009. Fact is, yes, I'm a huge fan of Bret the Hitman Hart, but the fact is, think about it this way: you got Kazuchika Okada, 32 years old, 5 IWGP World Heavyweight Championships. Bret Hart, when he left the WWE, how many championships did he have? Oh yeah, that's right, 5. So parallel careers almost at that point. Okada, I agree with Steven, could be on par, could be on pace to capture his 6th on July the 12th. But the fact is, Okada's only 32 years old, and this is 2020, and I'm curious to see where he's going to go in the next 10 years.
That's the difference. If this was 10 years from now, if he's on the same career path, he probably beats Bret Hart, but it's just not enough there, unfortunately.
Yeah. But the thing is, what I was going to say is I know where Bret Hart's career went after WWE. So that was my viewing point. That was my voting point as far as this goes. But again, this is why we have the odd numbers on the show, because the fact is I would have won Okada, would have been Okada versus somebody else in the finals, but I am outvoted. So
essentially, with what you're also saying, Bret Hart's WCW career is equivalent for you is equivalent to Chris Jericho's career in AEW.
yeah, essentially, if you want to put it that way. I was going to knock another promotion, but yeah, essentially, if you were to compare, I tell you this because this isn't TNT, so this is my personal viewpoint. I love Impact Wrestling, but if you were to take Okada right now and put him in Impact Wrestling, it'd be the same thing as taking Bret Hart and put him in WCW. It just wouldn't work, and anything Okada did in Impact Wrestling, say in 2020, wouldn't matter because he had that huge resume. Nobody remembers Bret for WCW. Everybody remembers him for WWE. So it doesn't matter what Okada does right now. The fact is, he's always New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's always IWGP. Shawn, what you're just saying, it's Jericho, right? He loves, and Omega even. Steven said many times on TNT as well as this, he loves Omega in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but put him in AEW. Take Chris Jericho, put him in AEW. Yeah. Yeah, so anybody who's ever listened on audio, Steven just blew his brains out. Not officially, but anyways. Before we get too off topic, last match of the round. Steven, you're up. So Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, taking on Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid.
So to me, this comes down NWA, WWE. Both have amazing resumes. Both have long, lustrous resumes. But I'm going the American Dream. I think that if I was looking at the best world champions, Rhodes had too many NWA territory world heavyweight champions. He was too important to the NWA. You could have taken out Shawn Michaels and replaced them with someone. You could have never taken Dusty Rhodes out and replaced them with someone in the NWA against Ric Flair or anything. It just wouldn't have worked the same way. So to me, Dusty Rhodes is just you've got too long of a history, too good of a history with too many world champions. So I'm going Dusty Rhodes. But this was very tough. I mean, he can go either way, really. But I'm going Dusty.
Okay, that surprises me. So I went the other way. I went the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. My finals was going to be Okada versus Michaels. So basically, the best of New Japan taking on one of the best in WWE history. That is not happening. So, but I can say that I was going to go Okada versus HBK. HBK, you can't argue with his resume, his title reigns, what he accomplished in the WrestleMania main events in front of 80, 90,000 people. As much as Dusty had his legacy, and the fact is everybody knew his name, adored him, and loved him, and still talk about him to this day, you can't downplay Shawn Michaels' accomplishments and where he's done them and who he's done them in the ring with. So I got to go Shawn Michaels. So Shawn, you are the tiebreaker. Shawn Michaels against Bret Hart in the finals, which is very interesting. Or is it the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes against Bret Hart in the finals?
Well, there's so much legacy between the two, but I was picking Shawn from the start when I did my brackets earlier in the week on that side of things. So it was not sure who was going to meet Shawn Michaels in the finals when I did that. But yeah, I'm picking Shawn just because of the impact that he had. Dusty has a legacy with the world of wrestling, but it's more on the creative side than on a championship side as far as I look at it, comparing the two. So yeah, HBK for the win. I would have liked to have seen him actually defend it better, especially his one title reign instead of losing his smile. But when you look at overall, yeah, I'm going with Shawn Michaels as the better champion. He brought, I think, more drama to the title. When also you look at the bigger scheme of things, you know, Bret versus Shawn in real life, not just in the ring life. Vince made a decision, and Shawn was his guy to carry on the company with. I think regardless of what you think of the Screwjob being a shoot or storyline, Brett was cared for by Vince, and that's why I wanted to make sure that Brett got a good deal with WCW, because even if WWE had lost, Brett was taken care of one way or another. But in the end, Vince went with Shawn. So I have to go with HBK over Dusty Rhodes.
So there we go, guys. So history repeats itself, 23 years later on Fantasy Warfare Tournament. West Bracket, Greatest World Champions, taking place tonight, July the 8th, 2020. Finals to take place tomorrow night on the 26th episode of TNT Thursday Night Throwdown, live on YouTube and Facebook Live. So guys, be part of that. We'll do a normal show for TNT for the first little bit, and then from there we'll move on to the Final Four, the Fantasy Warfare Tournament.
So like Jonesy will be able to join us. Maybe we'll get a fifth person to help break this up. We got time to get somebody in and have an actual battle for the Final Four.
Yeah, so Final Four, I mean, the four guys that were involved, so myself, Shawn, Steven, and Jonesy for sure. The fifth, whether or not it'd be a guy like Clarence. We're supposed to have Ryan Knight tonight, but he had an interview he had to do, instead, just timing-wise and stuff like that, because our shows usually go about an hour and a half when there's three of us, so 2 hours when there's 5 of us. But you won't see it go that long on TNT tomorrow night, so because there's only going to be 4 participants. But we definitely need to have an odd number of votes. So we will reach out. I'll release it with regards to the social media stuff I do. Who's going to be taking part in the show tomorrow night? But Bret the Hitman Hart, Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. It's going to make me seem like a hypocrite, but now I got to go the other way, because I'd love to see 2 Canadians in the Final Four. So you got Chris Jericho, but you got the history behind everything with the other guys. You got Nature Boy Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels. You got Stone Cold Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels. It's like the potential matchups that we've actually seen happen could potentially happen on this show. But like I said, I might seem like a hypocrite, but I got to go Bret the Hitman Hart with this one, simply because he's Canadian. And the fact is, him versus Shawn, that is where I have to go Bret the Hitman Hart. Anytime I've ever seen a real life match between the two, I've got to go Bret Hart, and it's just always been the way it's been. So, anyways, Survivor Series 1997, that might play into a factor of me being a little bit biased, work or shoot, whatever the case is, but it still happens. So, Bret Hart moves on in my vote. Shawn, is Steven going to be the tiebreaker?
Steven will be the tiebreaker, because as I just said a moment ago, when push came to shove and Vince had to figure out the best survival of the WWE, of whether or not to keep Bret, whether or not to keep Shawn, keep them both, and Vince sort of had his back against the wall when he was trying to deal with that 20-year contract. Things did turn around, and they were able to get Tyson in there, and everything that happened with Shawn Michaels and Austin, that started righting the ship, and we got the Attitude Era, and the 83 weeks of WCW's dominance went away. But how would have things gone if Vince had gone the other way and got rid of Shawn and kept Bret? I don't think it would have gone the same way. Just they wouldn't have had that attitude of DX and Shawn to help fuel things. I gotta go with Shawn Michaels.
Steven, you were the tiebreaker.
This isn't even tough for me. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Bret the Hitman Hart.
Here I thought he was texting. He was bringing up his theme music again. Yeah. One of these times I'm going to get my ass handed to me by YouTube again.
It's not under us. It's fine. There's just... Bret Hart. Bret Hart is just too much. Don't get me wrong, Shawn Michaels, amazing career, Mr. WrestleMania, but not all those matches at WrestleMania were World Heavyweight Champion matches. So Bret Hart, and he's Canadian, so it's just And he gets to face Stone Cold Steve Austin in the next round, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah, so as far as next round goes, guys, I would show you the graphic, but it's way too big, 64. I will download it and maybe put it up on Scumbags as well as the TNT Facebook groups. But yeah, next round we have, the final four. We've got Chris Jericho taking on Ric Flair first round. And then we've got Bret the Hitman Hart taking on Stone Cold Steve Austin, which is going to be interesting to see where people's votes are. But again, guys, episode 26 TNT Thursday Night Throwdown taking place live tomorrow night, 8 p.m. YouTube as well as Facebook Live. You'll see first half of the show dedicated to TNT the way we normally do. Myself, Steve, and Shawn. And then Greatest World Champions, Final Four. We'll get Jonesy involved. We'll have a fifth as well. And then we'll break it down the same way we're doing it right here. But it's going to be interesting because it's going to be live. If you've got comments, you've got your own votes, you've got anything to say about what we're doing, what we've done this tournament style, with the 64 names, or you've had anything to say tomorrow night, make sure you're signed on to Facebook or YouTube to be able to be part of the show and give us your thoughts on the live voting that we do tomorrow night. Guys, it's been interesting. It's a first 64-man tournament that we've done. Now, I know that we've got basically... Sorry, they have a private chat here on StreamYard, so we go back and forth. So if you see us just kind of smiling or laughing out of the blue, it's usually because something's going on in the backdrop there. And because I'm hosting the show and this and that, I can't always see what's going on. So I usually just look at them like, why the fuck are you guys smiling? And then sure enough, I'll catch up in a couple minutes, But case is this. So the fact is, like I said, we'll do a Final Four tomorrow night. Chris Jericho, Ric Flair, Stone Cold Steve Austin taking on Bret the Hitman Hart. Guys, what have you thought about the 64-man tournament, doing the live show tomorrow, as well as, do you guys want to release what we've got coming up? Because I know we've been talking on Facebook. I know one of them is done, as far as what, who's in it and what the next grouping series is going to be. But do we want to talk about the next 64?
Sure. Do you want me to start, or
Steven, why don't you maybe talk about the one that's we've got the 16 picks in already?
The one for next week?
Next
week.
week.
Yeah, it'll be next week.
Yeah, so next week we were chatting, I think, after the last one or on Facebook, and we were talking about different show ideas because we've just done a month's worth of long tournaments. So we're doing the best big men. I think we all have a different version of what big men are. Could be tall, could be larger, but I think the 16 we have are quite interesting, ranging from Yokozuna, Bam Bam Bigelow to Kevin Nash.
We got Kane, we got Kamala, Gorilla Monsoon.
There's some interesting names because I think all four of us have potentially a different idea of what big men are. So it's kind of vague, but kind of fun. So I'm looking forward to next week's because it'll be a little different than what you've just watched for the last 4 weeks plus. So it'll be fun.
All right. And Shawn convinced me once again to basically go to another 64 bracket. I was like, why not just do 32 and have each of us do 8 picks, and it's like, fuck that. Let's do 64 again. So when you start polling and some of the names that were dropped were very surprising, because I was like, holy shit, I forgot about these guys. But Shawn, you want to officially announce, and so next week's going to be devoted to the greatest big men. I'm not sure, maybe we might do another single show before that, and then maybe within 3 weeks or so we'll start the next 64 bracket. But do you want to talk about what it is?
Yeah, it definitely could be for the month of August, this one. We started off our first show of Warfare doing the greatest tag teams of the Ontario indie scene. Then we also have done the greatest tag teams of the 80s. Well, we're going back to the tag team realm, but we're going to do the same thing when we just finished with 64 of the greatest world champions. We're going to go 64 of the greatest tag team champions, and this is going to include every era possible. There's no era that's going to be excluded. So depending on where people pick from, we're also going to go AAA, TNA, Impact. ROH, AEW, WWE, WCW, New Japan. The globe is totally wide open as well, not just eras. And so there's going to be some interesting tag teams. Jonesy and Steven have already chosen their 16. I have a list of a little more than that to put in there. I got some obscure ones that I'm waiting to submit after Maloney picks his, because maybe some are going to be the same that I would have. I know of the ones that Jonesy and Steven picked, 5 of them came off my list, so I can insert some other people, and depending on what Maloney has in his mind, some more of my list might come off, and I can throw in some more obscure ones, sort of to equal out what we did in this one, where we had Orville, Brown, and that. But these are going to be worthy tag teams that had multiple title reigns for consideration, not just cannon fodder.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I should have those to Shawn probably before the night's through, and then hopefully Shawn does his amazing graphic work again to get all those pictures and the tag teams up. Maybe if Triple H is involved, maybe he doesn't look like he's all 350 pounds of Triple H. I mean, he's the picture in the graphic. Go back and watch the beginning of the show and look at the picture of Triple H. You can tell that was backed in his Schwarzenegger kind of, I'm gonna jack right up and then trim right down. It wasn't the Triple H that we've gotten to know and love the past 5 years or so. That was heavy attitude era. But yeah, like I said, Bret the Hitman Hart wins tonight. So again, him versus Stone Cold Steve Austin tomorrow night, as well as Ric Flair taking on Chris Jericho in the Final Four. Be myself, Steve, and Shawn, Jonesy, of course, and then we'll have one more as well to add to the mix. But guys, anything else you want to say before we do this live tomorrow night?
No, I think we're good. This tournament's been fun. A lot of good discussion. Could only imagine if certain, as I said before, cannon fodder was out and other more worthy champions were put in, where things would land. But with the 64 that were picked, we have an amazing Final Four tonight, and even bigger Final Four happening tomorrow night.
All right, Stephen, any closing thoughts for you?
I think it's going to be an interesting tomorrow night. I think there might be some fireworks you might want to turn in. Steven might have some hate juice, and it'll be a good time.
Yeah, Steven's always got some hate juice going on, especially when he signs on. He's got a Caesar in his hand, but we'll have to wait and see. But guys, thank you very much for watching as well as listening when I eventually get this up on audio. But yeah, you can check out this episode as well as most of the other episodes that we've done on the CWN online account for YouTube, but definitely on the TNT, the Thursday Night Throwdown account. You can see every episode we've ever done of Fantasy Warfare Tournament, as well as the past 25 episodes at TNT, and tomorrow night, episode number 26. So guys, we will see you tomorrow night live. Hopefully we got other t-shirts on, because I don't think we can match the same 3 again, but that means we haven't done laundry overnight, so we'll have to wait and see. But guys, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for being part of this, and we'll see everybody tomorrow night live, 8 p.m. TNT, episode 26, YouTube and Facebook. Have a good night, guys.
See ya.